Hey everyone, it's Laura here with MakingCardsIsFun.com, and it's time for another Saturday 7-day carding video. In today's video, I am going to be creating a thank you card using some Mama Elephant goodies and the Fuse tool by We Are Memory Keepers. So I'm starting out with this charm stamp set by Mama Elephant, and I'm going to grab the coordinating die of that set. So this is also from the charm set by Mama Elephant. I'm going to die cut that wreath over there out of some Neenah Solar White cardstock. This is the 80-pound cardstock, by the way. So I die cut that wreath, and I'm going to be putting that wreath back in later in the video. But first I'm going to stamp that coordinating image using some Memento Tuxedo Black ink. So I'm just going to ink up my wreath, and then I'm going to position that and stamp it onto that piece of cardstock. So the wreath kind of sticked to the stamp, so I just had to peel that off for a minute. Next, I'm doing some Copic coloring. I'm doing some really simple coloring. I'm going in with the lightest color first, which is YG23, and then I'm adding a little bit of shadow using my darkest color, YG67. I'm just going around the edges of those leaves, and then I'm blending that together using the YG17 Copic marker. And I'm not going back in with my lightest color because otherwise you won't see enough contrast between all of those green colors. Then I'm stamping some more images of the charm stamp set by Mama Elephant. I'm stamping the owl and the little banner stamp over there. I also stamped those images using Memento Tuxedo Black ink. Going to color the beak and the feet of those of that owl using some yellow Copic markers. I am using Y13 and Y18. Then I'm going to give that owl a little bit of blush using an E000 marker. And I also wanted to add a little bit of shading around the face and the belly of that owl, so I'm just doing that using an NO marker, just going around the edges a little bit. And it was just a little bit too dark in my opinion, because I really want like a really light gray shadow. So I'm just going to blend that with the colorless blender, which takes some of the color away. I'm going to color the owl itself using some different gray markers. I used NO first, and then I'm going in with N2, which is my darkest color, and then I'm blending that together using the N1 marker. I thought that was just a little bit too light and you couldn't really see the contrast between all of those gray colors, so I just went in with an N3 marker, and then I'm going to blend that out using the N2 marker. And then I was happy with the result because now you really could see the difference between the dark gray and the light gray color. I'm also giving that banner a little bit of shadow. Instead of using a gray marker, I am using the BG10 marker, which is like a really cool and light blue or pool color. So I also stamped a sentiment from that greeting, and I didn't show that on camera because my hat was in the way and you couldn't see what I was doing. So I'm just using the coordinating dies to die cut those images. I'm going to create another sequin shaker today using the Fuse tool just to show you it in action one more time. I am starting out with a We Are Memory Keepers photo sleeve. You could also use an Avriel stamp pocket or some other page protectors, but you have to make sure that it's like a plastic pocket. So I let my Fuse tool heat up for about 10 minutes, and then I'm using that steel ruler stencil as a guide. You don't really have to use the stencil since you're not going to be able to see those lines. But I like to use the stencil because I can just put more pressure on it, on the tool, when I'm using that ruler. And you really need to put quite a lot of pressure on there, and you need to go slowly because otherwise the lines won't be fully fused and sealed. I let the top of that page protector or photo sleeve open because I still needed to fill up my shaker. I am using some sequins from the Ton to fill up my shaker, and I like to use a little spoon to do that just because it's easier for me. So I'm just going to figure out where I need to fuse the last line, and then I'm just going to do that. I am not using the ruler this time, just to show you that you can also use it without the ruler. However, you really need to make sure that you put quite a lot of pressure on the tool and that you go slowly just to make sure that everything is fused nicely. So after I fused the sequin shaker, I'm going to trim it a little bit smaller so I can adhere it behind that white piece. So I'm just cutting that using my Fiskars Sure-Cut, and then I'm putting some adhesive on there using my ATG by Scotch. You can also use some liquid glue or another adhesive runner that you may have. So I'm just going to position that, and then I have my sequin shaker. And I really like that these shakers are just really flat, because that makes it just really easy to mail these cards out. So I'm adhering that wreath on that piece of plastic using my Tombow Mono adhesive, and I'm going to position that on there using my EK Success tweezers. I like these tweezers to adhere small images, but I also like to use these to adhere my sequins. Finally, I am piecing together the cards. I'm just adhering those images onto this piece of white cardstock using some foam adhesive. And as you can see, I cut that white piece to I cut it a little bit smaller. I cut that to 4 inch by 5 1/4, just so I can have like a colored edge around this white paper when I adhere it to a colored note card. So I'm just going to adhere some sequins from the ton. I didn't capture that on camera because it started to rain and it was just really dark, and I don't really have like professional lighting for filming, so I didn't capture that on camera, but I just adhered them using some glossy accents and my tweezers. So that finishes up the card for this week's Saturday Same-Day card-in video. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll be back tomorrow with 2 videos. See you then. Bye bye!